Holden has struck a landmark deal with the federal, Victorian and South Australian governments to keep building cars in Australia for the next decade. The company says the $275 million taxpayer investment will deliver $4 billion in benefits. While industry groups have welcomed the deal, some economists argue governments have been sold a lemon. Neil Woolridge reports.
Holden has been making cars in Australia for over 60 years. And they'll be staying for another 10 years at least under a deal with the federal, Victorian and South Australian governments. But it will cost the public purse $275 million.
This major investment is designed to make Holden's operations competitive when the Australian dollar is around parity with the US dollar now and in years to come.
Governments are being played for suckers. There's no ambiguity that car companies go to different governments and see how much money they can extract.
Australian car manufacturing employs around 50,000 workers directly and 200,000 indirectly. Industry groups have welcomed the latest assistance package, and the government says without it, Holden would have left Australia.
Holden's estimate is that that will generate more than $4 billion of value to the Australian economy. This is truly a strategic co-investment, not a handout.
I don't think that figure is credible, and of course it always comes at a cost. The billions of dollars that the government throws into the car industry comes from it being used in more productive sectors, which would be a far more valuable use of the money than if we keep throwing good money after bad.
Under the agreement, Holden will stay in Australia until 2022, invest $1 billion itself and build 2 new lines of next-generation cars.
Australia does not compete on a level playing field. And without co-investment, this country would struggle to attract new capital investment.
What we've got now is not even a product agreement, but an individual vehicle brand agreement. And I think that you go almost to the point of nonsense when you start to get to that sort of level. And it has to be something that isn't really based on any sort of coherent and continual sort of policy.
Martin Field generally supports industry assistance, but says this deal seems to be more based around political than economic considerations.
Everybody in Australia benefits from the revenue that the government collects in taxes, one way or another, and it's a nonsense to suggest that one small part of it shouldn't benefit. We've gone from 27% down to 8% of GDP in manufacturing.
Tim Wilson from the free market think tank, the Institute of Public Affairs, says the local car industry hasn't adapted to what consumers want, and he's also concerned about the way in which industry assistance is now being provided.
In the past, we gave money to car companies to get them off tariffs, to make them competitive and to get them engaged in export markets so they were sustainable businesses. Now, the government is co-investing in these companies and is basically paying them to stay onshore and in the process are just extracting basically a form of political bribe from government.
With Holden back in the driver's seat for the time being, it's now up to Ford and Toyota to see what sort of long-term deal they can strike for themselves.